Most people carry a smartphone every single day without ever questioning the absurd reality behind it, because hidden inside that sleek glass slab is one of the most extreme industrial transformations on Earth, a process so advanced that it literally takes ordinary sand from the ground and converts it into one of the most precise materials ever manufactured by humans. And the fact that this happens at massive global scale makes it even more mind-blowing. At the very beginning of the chain is something almost laughably simple: sand, but not just any sand, because the tech industry depends on sand that is extremely rich in silica, a compound made primarily of silicon and oxygen, which is found in deserts, beaches, and special mining sites around the world, and this raw material looks completely worthless to the naked eye, yet it is the foundation of everything from smartphone screens to microchips and solar panels. Once extracted, the sand goes through intense purification, because raw silica is nowhere near clean enough for electronics, so it is crushed, washed, chemically treated, and heated in industrial furnaces that reach temperatures above 1,700 degrees Celsius, a level of heat that literally melts the sand into a glowing liquid, and at this stage, the process already resembles something from a science fiction movie rather than a manufacturing plant. This molten silica is then cooled into extremely pure silicon or glass, depending on the final product, and for smartphone screens, the glass must be almost perfectly transparent, structurally consistent, and free from microscopic defects, because even a single impurity can weaken the material or distort how light passes through it, which is unacceptable for high-end displays. From here, the real magic begins, because the glass is not just cut and shaped, it is chemically strengthened using processes like ion
But have you ever
exchange,
wondered how
where
televisions are
smaller
made?
sodium ions
We
inside
visited
the
a
glass are
LED
replaced
television
with larger
factory to
potassium
discover the
ions,
manufacturing
creating
process.
internal compression that makes the glass far more resistant to scratches and impacts, which is why modern screens can survive drops that would have shattered older phones instantly. At the same time, other parts of the sand-derived silicon are being transformed into microelectronic components, because the same element that forms the screen also becomes the heart of the processor, the memory chips, and the display drivers, meaning that your entire phone is essentially a refined version of the same material that exists naturally in the Earth's crust. Inside giant semiconductor factories, silicon is purified to levels of 99.9999999%, a purity so extreme that it is almost impossible to conceptualize, and this material is grown into large crystal cylinders called ingots, sliced into ultra-thin wafers, and then engraved with billions of microscopic circuits using lasers, ultraviolet light, and chemical etching, all happening in sterile cleanrooms where even a single dust particle could ruin an entire batch worth millions of dollars. Meanwhile, in parallel facilities, the glass sheets are being polished, cut with diamond tools, coated with anti-reflective layers, oleophobic coatings to resist fingerprints, and optical filters that control color accuracy and brightness, all of which must align perfectly with the underlying display technology such as OLED or LCD, creating a layered structure so complex that no single company on Earth actually handles the entire process alone. What makes this even more insane is the scale, because this is not done for a few thousand devices, it is done for billions, every single year, across supply chains that stretch from desert mining sites to hyper-automated Asian megafactories, where robotic arms move faster than humans can see and conveyor systems operate non-stop, producing screens around the clock for global brands. The human role still exists, but mostly in supervision, quality control, and maintenance, because the tolerances involved are so small that machines are the only entities capable of operating with the required precision, which is why modern smartphone manufacturing is one of the clearest examples of how humans and machines have fused into a single industrial organism. From an economic perspective, this transformation of sand into screens represents one of the greatest value multipliers in human history, because a raw material that costs almost nothing becomes part of a product sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, and this value does not come from the sand itself, but from the layers of engineering, research, energy, logistics, and automation stacked on top of it. Environmentally, the process is both impressive and terrifying, because while silicon is abundant and recyclable, the energy required to purify and process it is enormous, relying heavily on electricity, water, and chemical systems that leave behind real ecological footprints, meaning that every smartphone carries not just technological brilliance, but also hidden environmental costs that most consumers never see. What ultimately makes this story so powerful is not just the science, but the philosophical implication, because it shows how human civilization has reached a point where we can take meaningless natural materials and impose intelligence, structure, and purpose onto them at microscopic scales, turning geological dust into global communication networks, entertainment platforms, financial tools, and digital identities. Your smartphone screen is not just glass, it is a compressed history of mining, chemistry, physics, automation, and global trade, all fused into a surface you touch hundreds of times per day without thinking, and once you truly understand this, it becomes impossible to look at a phone the same way again. This is not just manufacturing, this is modern alchemy, except instead of turning lead into gold, humanity has learned how to turn sand into intelligence, and the most unsettling part is that we now consider this miracle normal.